Technical Writing for Inspectors, Module 1, Introduction. Instructor Gary A. Pace, PE, CWI, Katy, Texas, TexasWeldingEngineering.com. Learning objectives, definitions of technical writing. What is technical writing? Important technical writing practices. What makes technical writing different? Using technical language. Academic writing versus technical writing. Format of the report and language of technical writing. So this course is going to cover technical writing. So we might as well start off with what is the definition of technical writing. Technical writing is the writing or drafting of technical communication used in technical or occupational fields. I'm not going to read through all these, such as construction, engineering, chemistry, electronics, biotechnology, forestry, and a whole host of other endeavors. So technical writing is, as it says, technical writing. We're not telling a story. We are writing down what happened. And I guess we're telling a story, but we're not using characters in the sense that you would use in a, novel by Tolstoy or something like that. We're just technical writing. This is what happened. This is what I observed. And we're going to try and figure out if we can get to maybe have a better understanding of technical writing. So what is technical writing? Where we might run across this? Repair procedures, work instructions, training materials, instruction manuals, policy and procedure manuals, inspection reports. That's where we're going to kind of focus on. Reports of analysis and design, and instructions for assembling and using a product. These would all be considered technical writing. So an inspector, you're going to have to write reports because you're the eyes and the ears for others. You're working for some client or your boss wants to know what's going on, and you need to leave a paper trail and documentation of what you did, and you need to accurately report and convey that information to the reader in a very clear and concise manner. Okay, so when we're doing technical writing for inspectors, here's a few questions that are going to help when we're doing technical writing. And we'll cover this in later modules. First one is, who's the client? Who are we reading? Who's going to be reading the report? Who are we writing the report for? What information do we need to convey? What information does the reader need? We're their eyes and ears. If we're an inspector, we're their eyes and ears on the ground. We are sending a report up the food chain. We're sending it to the people in management, decision makers. We need to give them information. What information do they need? What does the reader know? What is their background? What do we have to explain to them? How much background work do we have to do in educating them and getting them up to a level so that they can even understand what we're writing? That's one of the challenges of technical writing when we're an inspector. And what is the technical background of the person reading the document? Or is it a lawyer? Is it an accountant? Is it an engineer? Who is reading our document, and what is their technical background? So these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind when we're writing reports and when we're doing technical writing. So some important practices are planning. Understand the task before you begin. What am I writing? Maybe it's just a short report. Maybe it's a really long report. What am I writing? So we need to plan and understand the task before we even dive into this. Clarity. Sometimes we need to define the unfamiliar to people that might not have our technical background. We might have to explain welding or concrete or steel or tools, torque wrenches, whatever. Sometimes we need to define the unfamiliar to people that don't have our technical expertise. We need to use our words efficiently and avoid redundancy, but sometimes we need to be redundant. So shortness and efficiency can be crucial depending on how we're going to write our report. Simplicity, we want to use our details wisely. We don't want to get too crazy with things, but we want to have enough detail where we explain everything. So, important technical writing practices, here's some more. Word choice. We really want to avoid complexity. We want to break it down into the simplest terms. We don't want to overcomplicate things. Dictation. We want to use the correct language. We don't want to write this in slang or some other, unusable variant of the English language. We want to have, use the correct language in the right situation. Organization is key in report writing. We want to have everything arranged, all the different parts arranged correctly. Visual design and graphics. Sometimes we're going to need to throw in pictures to back up what we have written, or we're going to have something written that backs up the pictures and the graphics and the sketches that we are utilizing to explain to our reader what is going on. Process and habit. Once you start writing multiple reports, you got to have a process and you got to, have a habit on how you're doing it. So what makes technical writing different than, let's say, writing a science fiction novel or a romance novel? Well, we want to prepare the information, present it, and communicate it in a specific format. And there's not just one format, but we want to have it in a technical format. We want to be brief, clear, and accurate when we're writing a technical document. That's how we want to do it. We don't want to get long-winded. For the most part, we're not getting paid by the linear inch. We want to keep it clear, brief, concise, but also have a good body of work there that explains what we're trying to explain. The writing task needs to take into consideration the audience's needs, biases, and prior understanding. Who are we writing this to? Who is our audience? What do they know? What do they hate? What do they like? What do they want to get out of this report? Sometimes politics enters into this. And I don't mean politics on a global scale of the president, but politics or conflict between two companies or two departments, or you're the inspector, you're a third party witness to something. You're not either the client or the customer or the person building it. You are an independent entity writing a report. So we need to present the information to help readers solve problems or acquire a better understanding of an issue. That's what we're doing. All right, we went out and inspected these welds, this one, this one, this one, and we're wrong. This is our problem. This is how we're going to fix it. We're trying to educate people on the issue. What is wrong? What are we trying to fix? Maybe everything was good. Hey, went out and did this inspection. Everything's good. We're good to go. Ship this thing. So that's what makes these are some of the things that make technical writing different. And we should convey a technical or particular information in as simple a process as possible. We want to help non-technical people understand, because you might be the one that understands this, but the person that is, going to make the decision might not have the in-depth knowledge that you do. So maybe you're a welding inspector writing a report on failed welds and welding related issues to a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer. They don't know about welding. So it's your job to educate them sometimes. So sometimes the best writing is taking a complicated subject and breaking it down into a simple, report, a simple format, a simple amount of information that people can digest. So when we use technical language, you got to be careful with technical language. And, sometimes it's necessary. But if you're going to use technical language, you got to tread lightly and do it in a good manner so that the people reading it understand. If you just come in with a real passion and start throwing around words that are very technical to your specific, trade, maybe the person reading it might not understand it. So sometimes you need to, backtrack and then do a little education, explain some of the technical terms and concepts, and then you get into your report. Um, you know, use technical language if the message report is intended for members of a particular technical group. If you know the person that's reading your report is, let's say you're a welding inspector, and I use welding inspectors because I'm a welding engineer in a CWI, so this might be heavily slanted in that direction, but it pertains to all report writing. So, for example, technical language, the report is intended for, if I'm writing a report and I know the person on the other end is a welding engineer, all right, then I can really utilize more technical language in the report and probably don't need to, dumb it down or, you know, explain the technical language if my audience knows it. But if I'm going to people that don't understand welding and have no clue, well, then my task is going to be to educate them and then to explain to them what's going on with the technical language. And if you're working with a group outside of your technical expertise, if you're explaining concrete to welding people or welding to concrete people, well, then you might need to use plain language as opposed to just using technical language. Or maybe use a little more plain language and explain what you're trying to explain a little easier than if you're doing it with just technical language. Okay, so there's also a thing called academic writing. We're going to focus on technical writing, but there's also academic writing. So, academic writing can be to entertain, persuade, or inform. And this would be, a poem or maybe a book or a short story or maybe an article in a magazine. This would be academic writing. There's no definite purpose for a poem or a story. You're just telling a story or a poem, something about a chicken or whatever. There's no definitive purpose. Well, there's a definitive purpose for articles, books, and assignments when we do academic writing. Well, we have academic writing, and then we have technical writing. And with technical writing, it's to inform, persuade, and also to do research. So this is a lot drier. There's no characters running around shooting people with a laser cannon or ninjas or whatever. It's to inform, persuade, and also in the form of research. This is technical writing. There's a definite purpose. There's an order in a report. And for an inspector, you're going to write a report. It's needed. Somebody needed that done. Whereas a poem, you write it and you put it out there, it's not needed. Or a story. It might be needed, but not really. A report is you are the eyes and ears of an organization. You are informing somebody. You are giving information to somebody in a format that they can read and understand. And this is a report, a technical report is read for information, not for fun. Maybe there's some people out there that read this stuff for fun, but you don't go to a bookstore and see stacks of technical documents or technical reports. That's all academic writing. And it's very narrow specific purpose when we do technical writing. You're just informing on this. All right, I went out and looked at this, or this happened, or this broke, or this got destroyed. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about technical writing and having a very narrow specific purpose. So the format of the report when we're doing a report is, you're going to have your major headings. Then you're going to have some subheadings, bullets, underlines, bold type, some white space. You're going to format the report. We don't just puke it down there, just put a bunch of words down and go from there. There's a format to this, and we'll get into that later. Major headings. And then we're going to have illustrations, graphs, tables, pictures, drawings. These are also going to be included into the report to back up what we're writing, or the writing is going to be used to back up our illustrations. or they're going to be used in conjunction with each other to explain something to the reader. So the language of academic writing is the words that you use when you're writing something academic, elaborate, and there's going to be transitions, and it's going to be subjective, and there's multiple meanings to this. You write a story, and then somebody's going to try and decipher what you meant. What does it mean that Guinevere had a red dress on when she fought the aliens? Well, it's mankind's inner hatred of himself and chicken soup or some kind of thing like that. That's the academic world. There's multiple meanings and it's subjective. The sentence structure in academic writing is going to be complex. You're going to embellish things. You're going to, talk about how big the dragon was, or explain things in all these different ways that really bring color and bring out the story. You're probably going to use excessive words if you're doing academic writing. You're going to just write this thing and it's going to have a lot of words to explain things. A lot of synonyms. Passive voice is going to be included in there. Well, with technical writing, the words, active vocabulary, and we're going to keep it as plain as possible. We're going to try and get it easily understood. And we're going to be objective. In academic writing, it could be subjective. Let's say we're talking about saving the trees or talking about some kind of, environmental mission that this group has or whatever. They're going to put it into their terms and it'll be more subjective than objective. Objective, we're just going to write it and it's just going to be a report. This is what happened. We're going to try and remain objective. And we're going to try it. We're going to non-sexist. This is 2022 when I'm recording this. And we're going to avoid pronouns. And when I talk, we'll get into deeper in the pronouns, but we're not going to use words like I or he or she. We're just going to talk about the inspector, which is you writing it. The inspector arrived on site at a certain time. So we're going to avoid pronouns. And the sentence structure. We're not going to use a complicated sentence structure when we do technical writing. We're going to use repetition and we're going to use the active voice. And by repetition, you might have to say something twice or explain something twice, but use slightly different words or get more into detail in regards to explaining what you're doing. So writing technical documents is a little bit challenging, but once you get into it and figure it out, it's not terrible. So we covered the summary, definition of technical writing. What is technical writing? Important technical writing practices. What makes technical writing different? Using technical language. Academic writing versus technical writing. Format of the report, and then the language, the language of technical writing. Questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? My name's Gary A. Pace. I'm a PE CWI out of Katy, Texas, TexasWeldingEngineering.com.